Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, this is Season 4, Episode 6 of The Sailing Show on Wisp Sports Radio. The Sailing Show is a co-production between the Magenta Project and Wisp Sports, aiming to increase the coverage of women's sport. You can find out more information about the Magenta Project on our website, www.themagentaproject.org. The Sailing Show is a monthly podcast that will steer and inspire you along your sailing journey. I'm Abby Ehler, a 3-time round-the-world racer, shoreside manager with the America's Cup and SailGP, a mother of one and director of the Magenta Project. I'll be chatting to a wide range of women within the sailing community, including Olympic champions, ocean racers, change makers, and up-and-coming champions. Whether you're aspiring to race around the world, compete at the Olympics, or just needing a spark of inspiration, the Sailing Show will have something for you. On this edition of The Sailing Show, I'll be looking at the wider area of working within the sailing industry, in particular the roles of race officers, umpires and judges, and mark layers. My guests include Sofia Truchanowicz from Poland, a world-leading international sailing judge and umpire, who currently works as part of the umpire team for the SailGP Series. Maria Torrijo from Spain, an international judge, umpire, and international racing official, one of only a few in the world who can exercise all 3 functions, and is currently the principal race officer for the highly competitive TP52 Series. And finally, Jacqui Roberts, who manages the race officials development training programme for the RYA, the national governing body for sailing in the UK. So first, let's take a look at the differences between the roles. A race official, led by the Principal Race Officer, or PRO for short, is responsible for setting up the race course and controlling the development of the race. An umpire has the function of judging at sea, observing the race and making decisions at sea according to the rules, any incidents that may occur when 2 boats meet. A judge is in charge of resolving the situations that occur at sea when a protest occurs, with an audience of the 2 parties ashore post-race. Sofia's role is to witness the racing from the water and ensure that the rules are being observed, issuing penalties when infringements have occurred, very similar to that of a referee in a game of football. Sofia, welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me today.
Hello, Abby. Hello. Nice to be here.
Now, Sofia, we met through our work at SailGP, where you were working as an on-water umpire in a team of 4. It's a role that I really don't know that much about, and I'm very interested, and I've met a lot of people who are also very interested in pursuing a role, but are quite unclear on how to become an umpire or an on-water judge. So I thought I would ask you first to describe your career pathway and what's led you to where you are now at SailGP.
All right, I'll try to keep it as short as possible to focus on what am I doing now. But as everyone involved in sailing, I was a sailor myself. My father used to be a sailor, and up until now, he's a sailing coach. So sailing was in my blood, and I basically had no choice than to try sailing. I was pretty hard with my dad, I have to say, because I really didn't feel like sailing. I was a swimmer before. So I told my dad that if you really want me to sail, then I want the Optimist painted in blue with white stars. And my dad did that. So I had no other option than to actually try and sail. And I liked it, actually. Later on, I just loved it. So I did Optimist, I did Cadet, I did a little bit of 420 and Europe class. And later I moved to bigger boats. I was part of the women team on our national keel boat called 730 class. But later on, the decision came into place whether I want to continue with my sport or do I want to go to the university, and I chose university. So therefore, I didn't have much time to do sailing, and also as many people know, sailing is expensive sport, so I couldn't really afford sailing at the level that I would really like to do. And then I was looking for another option, and one of the options was to become a race official in sailing, and that helped me to continue with my higher education, and at the same time stay in touch with sailing and do something with sailing related. And basically, this is how it started. I looked around. What are the options to become the national race official? I was looking for some international opportunities to gain more experience. And I must say I was very fortunate because I came across a lot of good judges at that point whom I've met at the events I was doing, like Marianne Middleton, Bernard Bonneau, Jim Capron, Bill O'Hara, John Doerr. And these were the people that actually noticed I like to think my potential, and they simply gave me a chance. They gave me a shot. They gave me their attention in terms of actually seeing what I know, what are my faults, what are the fields for improvement, and I worked very hard to be where I am now. And yes, and I think that's it. It was a mixture of hard work, but also a lot of luck of meeting the people I've come across on my path.
Indeed, but you also make your own luck, so I think you sound like a very determined person. So no, that's fantastic. It's great to understand the pathway to where you've got through. And I would imagine that just through my experience in sailing, that on-water umpiring appears to have become more prominent now. It's being used in more events. And do you think that has helped the role of judging and umpiring? Has it become more recognised?
Well, for sure. And to be honest, even looking from the sailor perspective, I think this is what sailors want as well. You want to have immediate decisions. You want the game to be finished on the water. No one really likes spending hours ashore, neither the sailors nor the judges. This is also hard work. And the fact that you are not witnessing the incidents when you are a member of the jury and you deal with the protest ashore, it doesn't help the game that much. It is important that we have that facility, that there is the jury on bigger events where simply it is not possible to provide enough umpires to cover bigger fleets of boats. But the reality is that we are dealing then with incidents that we have not observed. And sitting behind the table, we are listening to parties, we are listening to the witnesses, and we try to make as fair decision as possible based on what we have heard. And this is a solution, given the big amount of fleets that you are having at the top Olympic events. However, everywhere where the fleets are smaller and the organizers have the possibility to actually provide the umpires who can cover the incidents on the water, this is for sure the best arrangements that you can have, because you are physically having umpires on the water, following the boats, observing the incidents, and making the judgment and making the decisions based on what you physically have seen. Of course, as in every sport and as in life, people make mistakes. The same applies to race officials, to umpires, to judges. But at least it is based on what you have seen. And I think it also minimizes the distance between the sailors and the umpires, because it's natural the umpires are part of the game when the decisions are being made on the water. Therefore, there is always field for communication, for discussion after racing. And I think it's really helping both the sailors and the umpires to develop and to learn from one another.
I think that's a very valid point. And excuse me, just to explain to our listeners, in more traditional events or in the past, that if an incident had occurred on water, the process would be that you would sort of note it down, you would acknowledge that there'd been an incident, but then you would have to discuss it after racing, and by which time you've had time to sort of digest or maybe tweak the story a little bit. And as you said, when you see it on the water, it's live, so you're dealing with the incident as it's seen and bringing a conclusion hopefully there and then.
Yes, that's what we try to achieve.
So I would imagine, the fact that you have to make these very intense decisions, particularly in an event like SailGP, where the yachts are moving at very high speeds, you're having to make these decisions very quickly. I guess it's the equivalent of putting a yellow card or a red card in a game of football. How do you deal with that pressure of making immediate decisions?
Well, to be honest, the SailGP is a very unique event because the way we are dealing with decision making in terms of the rules being broken is that we are having 3 umpires in the booth, and we have 1 umpire, which in this case is me, who is on the water. And basically, SailGP is having a very sophisticated software that allows the umpires in the booth to actually have all the data, including the boat speeds, including the tracking of the boats, even the ghost boats, which show where the boat would end up, for example, in 5 seconds. So they have all the data needed to make a decision. And the information that we are providing from the water are more about boat handling, about the things that cannot be seen on the software. It may also happen that there is a very short lack of a boat on the screen if there are some issues with the data, and then the umpires in the booth cannot physically see the boat on the screen. Then I am providing the information what is currently happening, whether there is any potential incident or not. But giving this sophisticated software, basically the umpires in the booth are the ones making the decision whether there is a rule being broken or not. Mm-hmm. So this is something contrary to what we are having in terms of other events that are using fleet race umpiring, where you are having 1 or 2 umpires on the water discussing between themselves on the water what is happening. So it's easier in one sense, given that we are really having more information at SailGP than at any other umpired event. But at the same time, yes, as you mentioned, the boats are making huge speeds. The record, I think, for the moment is 53 knots. But even at the latest event in San Francisco, when they were doing over 40 knots downwind, it is very hard to catch up with them. So you are focusing firstly on safety, and secondly, you really try to remember, okay, what is the crucial bit of information that the umpires in the booth may be missing in particular incident, and this is how we communicate to make the right call.
Okay, it's very interesting, and it's such a break forward, I guess, in technology, having that amount of information at your fingertips, so to speak. So let me pose the question again about dealing with the pressure, and let's take it maybe to, I'm thinking like the Extreme series, which is also quite high-speed catamarans, and I'm thinking there you don't have quite so much data at your fingertips.
No.
So what gets you to the point where you can make that call? Because you have to make that call pretty quick, and there must be a million things going through your head, or are there, or have you already sort of pre-planned that there's an incident coming up and you can already sort of play out the incident so it doesn't become such a pressurized decision?
Okay, well, that is an interesting discussion over the pressure, and it comes a lot of times when people talk about or ask or are interested in umpiring. But the bottom line is that if somebody wants to become the umpire, dealing with pressure and the ability of making instant decision, this is basically the basics. We can't even say that this is the skill that you have to develop. I mean, you have to be prepared to deal with that. This is the basics. Without the ability to deal with the pressure and ability to make instant decisions, you will not find yourself out there, simply because that's why you are there, to make those instant calls. And basically the second, let's say, rule that I'm using is that the simpler the better. So you shouldn't overcomplicate or overanalyze things that are happening on the water. You go there, you know what the basic positioning plan is, you know where you want to be with your boat to see the overlaps, to see the distances between the boats. You know what are the most likely scenarios to be happening at the start, at the top mark, at the gate. So basically, of course, there is this standard plan that you can learn and you can adjust and you can memorize. But in reality, of course, it changes. So one of the skills that every umpire should have is the ability to be flexible and to reposition, given what is happening on the water. And this repositioning comes whenever you know where you really need to be for where you really need to be to observe the incidents that may happen. And for every rule, the more you work with the rules, the more you know where you need to be to see those key points. Yeah. So this is one thing. Once you have that, then of course it takes you down to your rules knowledge. And again, the more you worked with the rules, the better. And in terms of umpiring, everything comes with experience. Being a judge and working on a jury is a good and solid background because it gives you time to work with the rules. You don't have that when you are umpiring. When you are dealing with the protests ashore, you have an option, you have an ability to discuss that with other judges. You have time to look into the rule book. You have time to analyze the rules. Once you are on the water, you don't have that time. So a solid knowledge of the racing rules is a key. Mm. So once you have that, again, it makes your work simpler because you have all the tools and all the skills you need to make those decisions. And to answer your question about the pressure, I think it also comes with experience. Of course, after or before every event, I mean, you do feel a kind of pressure, especially when the stake is very, very high. But at the same time, as in life, when you are under pressure and you cannot deal with that pressure, the stress is actually paralyzing. It's not motivating. And I found it much easier even when I was feeling a pressure, and I still feel it. I mean, it's natural part of the game. Every sailor, I'm sure, is feeling a pressure when you are 4 minutes to go and you know what you're fighting for. But turning that pressure into something motivating and knowing that actually you can give the best of yourself, and this is also the option to self-develop, is something that keeps me going. And once the clock starts ticking, you are just doing a race. And what I really found very useful for myself is that it doesn't matter whether I'm at the Olympic Games or Volvo Ocean or SailGP or at the national event. For me, every race is the same because basically what I'm doing is the same. I am on the water. I know what my role is. I'm there to make the decisions. I want to be in the best place possible to make that call. And it's just a different boat and a different level of event you are dealing with. But basically, the job you are doing is the same. And once you put yourself in that state of mind that this is just another race where you want to give the best of yourself, then you don't really pay attention to the helicopters over your head or the cameraman all around you on the water. You just go and you do what you have to do, and that's it. That's basically my recipe for dealing with the pressure. Just treat every race as another race. Give the best of yourself. When you make a mistake, learn out of them. Don't get too stressed about it. Of course, no one likes to make a mistake, but without them, we are not developing ourselves. So you just have to accept that this is part of the game as well.
That's incredible advice. Excuse me. Great advice. And I sense that you really enjoy this role and hence what you said about the pressure, it becomes motivating rather than paralyzing is a very key point. It's fantastic to hear that. And I guess for anyone who's really trying to start out on this journey or is really keen to follow in your footsteps, what would be your advice about getting started, how to get on that ladder? I know you touched on it in terms of being surrounded by some great mentors and really learning from those people. But really, how is that first step of is it getting to know the right people and nurturing those relationships, or what would be your advice?
Well, first thing I will say, and it might not be too popular, but I will say don't start too early. Giving my example, I was 22 when I became international judge, and at that time, that was the youngest ever in the world. And after a few years, I was approached by a few young coming race officials that told me, "Oh, I want to be like you." And I said, "Don't." I mean, if I would have an option, and if I could afford that time-wise and financial-wise, I would keep on sailing. If you really have a chance, keep on doing that as long as you can, because that gives you a tremendous experience that you can then use in your race official's career, especially if you want to be the umpire. Then the knowledge of the boat handling, of sailing is extremely useful. So as long as you can, just keep on sailing. And meantime, if you want to see how it is to become the race official, just the best thing is to check what kind of national programs are being run in every of the countries. Every MNA has their own national program for race officials, and this is the best start. Start with the basics. Start on national level. The reality is that you are getting a lot of interesting or even more difficult incidents at the national level than when you move to the international top level, where the hearings that you are dealing with or the situations are more obvious because sailors are also more qualified. While at the national levels, when sailors do not know the rules well, they also learn how to sail, you may come across a lot of interesting situations or protests that you just have to find a way out. So start on the national level, check the national race officials program, and then if you are coming from Europe, Eurosaf organization is having the program for race officials. It's called Eurosaf Race Officials Exchange Program, and this is actually the program that I was also using when I was starting. The whole concept about Eurosaf exchange program for race officials is based on the fact that every nation can apply for a spot for their national judge or national umpire or national race official, and then the participant covers the cost of travel, but he has a spot at the international event. He's also provided with food and accommodation at the event, and most importantly, he's able to gain the experience at the international level and then meet race officials who can later on help them gain new events. So basically, this is something that exists. This is something that every race official can use. But again, to take part in that program, you have to be included in the national race officials education program, and the best is to check that with your MNA. And once you're, let's call it, you are in the structure. Meaning that you are part of the national education program, and then you have access to Eurosaf exchange program when you're in Europe. Then again, it's all about networking, and it's all about the people that you meet. And I have to say from my own experience that the senior international race officials, they are extremely open to actually create opportunities to new coming race officials with potential, who have motivation, who have potential, who are really eager to learn, because it's natural. It's natural that we need to keep rotating people. I mean, everyone will step down at one point, and all you want to have is to have a qualified race officials who will come and take your place at one point. So international race officials community is really open to, let's say, to adopt the newcomers who are interested in that game. And the reality is that it is harder to get new young people interested in that, or simply being able to do that, because it takes a lot of time. Not everyone can afford it, and very often it is simply that the young people with potential who would like to be race official, they also have a very promising careers ahead of them in their professional life, and not everyone can simply afford to dedicate that much time to develop in race officiating. So there are a lot of factors, but surely the will is there, the opportunities are there. So just be part of the national program, get out there, meet new people, and if you have a potential and you're interested in doing that, the international community is open, really, to create a chance for you.
Thank you, Sofia. I mean, that's really interesting. It's great to hear about all those organisations that you've mentioned and the pathways and that exchange program. I mean, that's fantastic. Something that I wasn't aware of even. So great to hear. And on a final note, I wanted to really ask about you. I mean, you've come so far, and I would still say you're very young.
Thank you. I like to think the same.
What does the future hold? I mean, where does your ambition lie now?
Oh my goodness. To be honest, I think I'm really happy where I am. I remember when I was starting, of course, I was dreaming about doing the Olympic Games. Now I've done 3, and it's interesting every time I do the games, but I don't need to do more. I've always wanted to do Volvo Ocean Race. I've done a couple. To be honest, whenever I become international umpire, I always felt that umpiring is something closer to what I want to do. Maybe because, as I mentioned, it just takes you on the water. You feel more like you're part of the game. So I was really focusing after the Olympic Games 2012 in Weymouth. I decided that basically umpiring will be more my path, and I was trying to develop as much as I can when being there. And yes, and this year SailGP came into place, which was like a big wow. And again, giving the new tools that we have available for improving umpiring on and off the water. For me, it's a huge self-development, and working with the team of umpires we are there is also something that a few years back I could only dream of. So I can honestly say I'm happy where I am, and I just want to see where it takes me. I just want to become better and better and learn more and more. Because one thing that when you're thinking of becoming race official is that you should never forget that you will never get to the point that you know everything. Once you think you know everything, that's a bad sign. Because we learn every day, we learn with every event. We naturally want to keep on being better, and that's when getting closer to sailors help us to learn from one another, as I said. So I think I just want to keep on self-developing in terms of being a good umpire, and yes, and that's it.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I'm sure, as you said, that the sport and umpiring within the sport will continue to evolve, you know, as we've seen with the technology available now, which is being used in SailGP and in the previous America's Cups. I mean, it will just continue to grow and to evolve, and to be a part of that, I guess, is very exciting. So thank you for sharing all of your advice and your experience and your pathway. It's been very interesting to hear your stories, and thank you for your time joining me, Sofia.
No, thank you. It was really nice to talk about umpiring, to be honest. When once you're there and you just do it, you don't often talk about it, and so thank you for that. And I hope that if there's someone in the air who is thinking about umpiring, I can honestly say that this is a great thing. And if you were thinking about it, just go out and do it, and you'll enjoy it.
Brilliant advice. Well, thank you, Sofia, and look forward to working with you on SailGP this season.
Full Time, the soccer show with Katie Stengel, only on Wisp Sports.
My second guest is Maria Torrijo, who comes from Alicante in Spain. Maria grew up sailing, and as she progressed through the sport, wanted to expand her expertise, and she became interested in arbitration in the role of judges and race officials. I managed a very brief catch-up with Maria while at the first TP52 Super Series event of the season in Mahon, Menorca. The TP52s are a highly competitive and professional race series for which Maria is the principal race officer. Thank you, Maria, for joining me.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you about how you became the race officer, your pathway through. I'd be really interested to know how you've ended up where you are here today.
I started to sail and race when I was 8, and then it came. I don't know why. I was studying. I am a chemistry, and then when I was studying, I needed money, and then I started to be race officer on club levels, and then I realized that I really love this job, and I started to do it for life.
Right. And is there a structured system within the Spanish sailing organization where you study for such a role, or is it just something
No,
that
not at all. As I told you, it just arrived. I was not planning to live by sailing, and I'm so happy now to do it.
Yeah, you obviously enjoy what you do, but I would say it's something that you need experience to be able to do your role, and it must be quite hard to sort of get that experience when you're starting out.
Yes, that's true. But every time I do an event, I really learn a lot. I mean, just you learn more when you are on the race committee side. You learn how to be a good race committee, because my husband was a very good sailor, and then I had, the enemy at home, and he was just telling me what to do or how to improve, and that was the way I was going up
Into a different avenue, if you like, within
yeah, exactly.
the sport. And we had a pretty challenging day the day before yesterday here in Mahon. I mean, how do you plan for venues? Is there a lot of pre-planning into an event, and how do you deal with the obstacles of the wind when it doesn't want to play ball?
Unfortunately, I'm not there to decide the places where we are going, because sometimes we are going to, for example, last year we went to Valencia in September. That is not the best month. Then, I cannot say, I don't know how to say that. I was not in part of make the decision. Exactly.
Yeah.
But then once I am here, I have a team that is local, and they really help me with the local forecast. And because sometimes the professional forecasts are okay, but the really local place has a different wind, and really need the help of the local people.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of small things,
Yeah,
different
exactly.
sort of things.
Especially in this island where the wind, if you move 1 meter east or 1 meter north, you have completely
changes.
different wind.
Yeah. And it must be pretty hard when things aren't going right, and effectively you have to postpone races, or sometimes you have to abandon the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be really almost challenging dealing with that pressure, knowing that you've got all of these sailors out on the water. And
but luckily the guys are very good. They really understand all my calls, and I don't have any problem. I mean, they trust me. Then when I decide, of course, some of them prefer to race with less wind, the others with more wind, and of course they give me their feedback, but they accept everything. I'm quite happy with the class.
It's a tough role. And my final question would be, for anyone that's aspiring to do what you do, I mean, what would be, if you could give yourself some advice looking back at your pathway?
Yes, for me the advice is listen. You have to listen always what the sailors say. They really help you to understand the regattas, the place, everything. Just listen to the competitors.
And in terms of getting experience and advice on how people can get that experience to become a race officer, what would your suggestions be?
Yeah, to start doing local events, and then it will come. You will do more and more, you will have more experience, and at the end you will be here with the 52 Super Series.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're
and
welcome.
let's hope that we get some good racing today.
Thank you.
My final guest on this episode to give us more information on the official training programme through to these roles is Jacqui Roberts, who works for the RYA. So thank you very much for joining me today. So just a little explanation. The RYA stands for the Royal Yachting Association. It's the national governing body of the sport of sailing in the UK. You've been with the RYA for quite a while, particularly 10 years, and particularly in the training area. So maybe we could kick off with just a little bit about what you do within the RYA, your role.
My role currently, I'm the Race Officials Development Officer. I help race officials who are looking to gain more experience, and maybe they are the RYA level race officer and they would like to become a national race officer, or even they want to progress to an international race officer, and then we will look at helping them find events and gain more experience that way.
Yeah, okay. So I've also spoken to a couple of other girls that I know within the racing who have now become judges or PROs, but their pathways seem to be quite random, quite sporadic. So I wondered, what's the official's kind of pathway in terms of training? If you were based in the UK, what are the options if you're starting from scratch?
If we start off at sort of grassroots level, we do club talks. That's as basic as we go. We go into the clubs and we introduce the roles of race officials, race officers, judges, umpires and martlers. We would then do club courses, which is normally sort of a one-day course. We'd either take them out on the water and try and get them to run a race, that sort of thing, just to get them to understand how it works. Then if they still are very interested and they want to progress, they might be doing the race officer duty, for instance, at their clubs. We then do RYA courses that are 2-day courses that can lead for them to get an RYA credential.
Right. And so in the courses, are they predominantly theory? Is it very much a theory course? Or is it
they are theory.
Yeah.
Martlaying is on the water. Judges and umpires can be a bit of both.
Yeah, okay.
All depending.
So imagine that I've done this little bit of training and I've done my course, but how do you making that transfer from a theory onto the water? And it's obviously a very intricate role out there in terms of understanding conditions, the type of boats that you're running races for. Is there, how does that progression look? Is it a case of shadowing people or?
People tend to be a member of a club.
Yeah.
So they would tend to go out with other club members and probably shadow them to get the experience.
Yeah.
We can offer we have race management coordinators and rule advisors who will look to help them within different clubs if they haven't got a particular club themselves and they want to get in different events. We have RYA events that we can get them involved in, and they can go on the committee boat and do different tasks on the committee boat just to get the experience.
At what point do you become an official race? Do you get to the point where you become a race official and then you can go and run a race, for example, as a PRO? Or
yes, there are particulars. To become an RYA race officer or a judge or an umpire, you would have to do 4 events. If it was a race officer, 4 events running the race, you would then have to get a reference from an RYA qualified race officer, and then you could sort of apply to the RYA for that credential.
Right. Okay. So in terms of like a timescale, how, if we were just starting out and the goal is to become a race
I would
officer.
Probably say for the RYA level, depending on your current experience, I would probably say 2 to 3 years.
Right, okay. So you mentioned experience. Do you think to do this sort of role you have to be a sailor?
No, not at all. No. It definitely helps because you've got a better understanding of the wind and the weather conditions and everything else. But we do have race officials who actually have never sailed.
Right, okay, interesting. And I wanted to ask a little bit about the academy, the RYA Race Officials Academy, which was set up in late last year.
Yes, the end of last year.
So that was a new incentive. Was that because there's a need to grow people within those roles?
Absolutely. Our race officials, we probably got 65% of our race officials are over 65.
Right.
And without them, their experience and their knowledge, we would be lost. However, we want to progress and make sure that we carry on and we get younger people more interested in being race officials. It was a brilliant initiative. We set it up and 88 people actually applied to join, which was fantastic. And initially we were only looking to take 20 forward, gender equal. Yeah. But the 26 that we took for the initial induction weekend were so good.
You've kept them all.
We've kept all the 26.
And what sort of, where have they come from? Are they students?
All around the country. We literally have a couple that are 18, and we also have a couple that are 35, and ages in between.
Right.
And they are very passionate about what they do. They're a really good group, and we are hoping that it's also encouraging other people when they see what the Academy are doing and that they're getting the events. All we're trying to do with the Academy, that we're training them in all the different 5 disciplines, including measuring.
So that would be like race officer, a judge, is that what you mean?
Yeah, judge, umpire, markler, and a measurer.
Oh, right.
Just so that they can get an overall picture of exactly what all the different disciplines do and also support each other. So,
I'm sure it's a good sort of group that will grow and flourish together, I guess, through
absolutely.
those roles.
They've got a WhatsApp group, and funny enough today, one of them's actually asked if anybody wants to help in an event. It's sort of getting more people together, and I think if younger people see more younger people doing those roles, they can see that it is actually possible.
Right. And so how is the Academy structured in terms of how often do they train? Do they all meet up together, or is it dotted around?
They're dotted around the country, so the training is taking place to get them trained up within the next couple of years, that they would have done all the RYA level qualifications, and then they will probably look to specialise in a particular area, because some are enjoying the judging or umpiring side, and some are actually like being the race officer or martler. We already have from the Academy the first female martler, which is brilliant, because the RYA didn't have any women martlers at all until now. So it's just sort of getting more people interested and involved.
Yeah. And do you think part of this, I hear that if we look forward towards the Olympics in the future, that there will possibly be a requirement to be gender equal across all roles of the sport. So if we take sailing, for example, that's going to include the race managers, the officials, marklers, as you said, umpires, judges. Is there a real need to have more women involved in those areas? Are we lacking at the moment?
We are definitely lacking. I think we have about 13% of our race officials are women.
Right.
So we did set up an RYA race officials women's group and identified all the areas that we thought we needed to address to try and encourage more women into the sport.
Okay.
For instance, we had an initiative this year at the Dinghy Show offering courses for a lesser amount to try and get women, and 3 actually signed up for the courses, so that was brilliant.
That's great, yeah.
And we also have bursaries, and we have the bursaries for women and also for men, to pay for their courses if somebody wanted to start out and they weren't sure what they wanted to do. Yeah. Hopefully we can encourage them.
And so would that be available? I know the Academy is very youth orientated, so 18 to 35. Yeah. But for those that don't fit in that age group and are perhaps a little older, especially those, I mean, colleagues of mine have said to me, we're really interested in pursuing this role of umpiring or judging. They've come out of sailing very, high-level sailors. Is that the sort of thing they would be open to in terms of this? Yeah. So it's not just
definitely. No, not at all. And if they got in contact with us, we could see what we could do to help to get them involved in other events, be it RYA events. Because we're also hoping that in next year, in 2020, one of the main RYA events, one of the race teams will be from all of the academy.
Right, okay. Well, that's a great goal
good
to
start,
have, isn't it? Yeah. And in terms of outside of the UK, I mean, is there something about international exchanges or...
we have a Eurosaf scheme, and what we do, we ask clubs around the country to offer an event to us that we can give to the Eurosaf, and then in exchange they will then give us an event. So somebody from that particular club, we always look for that club first if they want to send somebody abroad, so that we can do the exchange.
I think that's a really valuable aspect. I mean, it puts a great opportunity to go and experience other countries, and I guess to learn, I mean, so much about different venues, about the way different race
everybody does it so differently.
And in terms of if we looked at the youth academy or the race officials academy, are most of them sailing as well as doing their race officials? Are they managing the two along the side, or is it, do you think you can only do one?
No, you can definitely do both, and I think that's what's so good, is that I think up till now people have felt that to be a race official you can't sail as well, but you actually can, and it does sometimes take a little bit longer maybe to qualify, to get your events in, but you can definitely do both, and I think that's really good.
And there must be an aspect of one will help the other, in terms
definitely.
of the skill set of learning to be an officer or a race officer or a judge, for example. It must reward your sailing and vice versa, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully if they have a protest, if they've got the judge's knowledge, they will be able to go and win that protest hearing.
Earlier on, we were chatting about the number of women who are currently involved in the management of racing, and noting that there are a significant number of women involved in the supporting roles, such as taking the times, the recording, the signalling. But it's understanding how to make that transition from a supporting role up to those race official roles, and understanding the barriers that may exist to get them there.
I think now, though, with younger people coming into it, the younger women are more up to doing it, whereas I think because it's been more older generation, that they tend to be the wives of the race officer.
No, I think that's a very valid point, and I think something that was obvious for me during the last Volvo Ocean races, what we saw with Turn the Tide coming through, was that they were a very young team, they were gender balanced, and to them they don't quite see the barriers into the sport perhaps as I had seen when I was growing up. So absolutely. I think it's definitely a generation change.
And I definitely think
seeing
more women are interested in judging and umpiring now. Actually, the women that are sailors, they find it interesting.
I guess one of the other things I wanted to ask was, to me in the past, I guess traditionally, whether the older generation have been involved in running races, whether it's been very much a voluntary role up to a certain level. And it feels to me as the sport has grown through technology, through professionalism, and the quality of racing is getting better and better, it is vital that we have races that are run well. Are most of these positions paid, or at what level do they become paid roles?
They're all voluntary, and they just have that passion, and that's why we like to keep the training to a good standard, so that we can offer good racing across the country, the same standard. Right. But no, they normally get their accommodation paid for, and they're fed, and maybe travel, but the rest of it, no, it's all their own time. And we use our Facebook quite a bit. We've got Race Officials' Facebook page.
Okay.
And if anybody from clubs or classes are looking for, often it's an umpire or a judge to help them with one of their events.
Yeah.
We advertise that,
okay.
and they get their volunteers that way.
Right. Is there quite a network of resources in terms of people who are qualified, and so perhaps going back to what we were saying about getting the experience and shadowing people, is that network existing so that you can tap into people and say, right, I
absolutely.
really want to go?
On our website, we've got a race officials directory.
Yeah.
So if anybody is looking for race officer, judge, umpire or markler within their region, they can actually search for them on the race officials directory and actually contact them themselves. We haven't got 100% of our race officials on there because it's just ones that can agree to be there, but it's a brilliant way of finding somebody that wouldn't be too expensive because they're actually local to you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. One final question, the academy, is that something that will happen year to year, or is this sort of a pilot year to see how it goes?
It's been a pilot year, but it's been so successful that we are actually talking about hoping that we will be able to continue it, and maybe biannually, so maybe not next year, but maybe the year after, looking at having a new intake.
Okay, so anyone that's really interested in this career path should be keeping a close eye on your website. Jacqui, that's been brilliant. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing your knowledge in this area. And I think that's been really useful for anyone that's looking to pursue a role in any of these areas. So thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Sailing Show, where we've looked at a range of opportunities within the supporting roles of our sport. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share this episode if you know someone who would benefit from listening to what any of our guests have had to say. Please continue to follow the Magenta Project on our website and social media channels. And to keep up to date on women's sport in general, not just sailing, check out the Wisp Sports online and social media. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you tuning in.